John DeSando.
Classics, let's go to the movies and share some popcorn, soda pop with our friends. Turn off our cell phones and get away. Night or day, it's John DeSando on the radio. We'll watch the credits from up high and low. Cinema Classics on.
Cinema Classics is produced and hosted by John DeSando. Listen to shows Thursday at 8:01 p.m. on WCBE 90.5 FM, and listen to shows and read reviews online at WCBE.org.
I'm John DeSando.
I'm Raymond Hagood.
I'm Taylor Hagood.
And I'm Wayne Miller.
And this is
Cinema Classics.
we're a little confused here because we have special guests all the way from Berlin, Ohio. The Madhrikan's Magic Show has transformed itself to coming right to talk with us about magic and movies. Who would have thought? But anyway, Raymond and Taylor are both mainstays, one being Madhrikan and the other being Mysterio. If you ever think about one of the greatest times you'll ever have is going up to Berlin, Ohio and seeing their magic show. But right now we have a show to do for National Public Radio, and we need to get on it. And I have to ask Raymond, because he is the senior magician here, I have to ask Raymond a particular question about magic and movies. And Raymond, that is, could you explain what magic is all about? Its connection to movies. What is it? What do we got here, Raymond?
Well, the answer to this question might be sort of a surprising thing to you. There was a man by the name of Edward Bernays, and in 1928 he wrote a very famous book called Propaganda. And he was a nephew of Sigmund Freud, and very brilliant man. He was the first man to ever apply various psychological principles to both advertising and the control of the masses of people in the world. In fact, later on, Goebbels would use propaganda as a textbook in the Nazi regime. And the reason that I mentioned Bernays as it relates to this is because the basic premise of his book on propaganda was the control of the will of the masses of people to aid in advertising and other things. The best definition that I've ever heard of magic is that magic is the manipulation of the will of people by deception for the purpose of making them happy or entertaining them on some level. So there is like a real connection. I think it's important that when you talk about this, that there is this basic understanding of the theory of what's happening. Now take, for example, the 1940 Zorro movie with Tyrone Power. Diego, the son of the ruler there in California, he is in Spain. He is the greatest fencer of all. He does magic, does little parlor tricks, and his father inexplicably calls him home. And so he comes home and he finds out that his father has been dethroned, their house has been taken over, tyrants are now ruling. And he immediately has a plan. It is a plan to deceive these rulers. And this plan involved making his voice less masculine in the first place. And then he feigned any sort of violence. And then he did little parlor tricks. And all of this had an effect of changing the will of the tyrants so that they no longer viewed the son of the deposed ruler as being a threat. So this idea of the change of will is very important. And then I just want to make one more comment, and you two are the masters of the movies and critics, and I am not. But I believe my opinion is that really many movies, maybe most movies, are really based on the principles of affecting the will of people of this in one way or another. It can be a benign thing, or it can be something that's not benign, like the Nazis did in propaganda.
And Laney Riefenstahl being one of the great
Yeah.
examples of
Yeah.
manipulation. Taylor, I had thoughts of you when he mentioned this dueling, because Taylor is a champion fenceman.
Yes,
So
yeah.
this kind of fits. Your observation about magic in movies.
Yes, I wish I could say I were a champion, a fencer, but I get along.
Yeah.
I usually, when the bouts are over, if I drink a glass of water, it only spurts out of about half a dozen holes. You know. But no, I think movies and magic are very interesting. I mean, they're together right at the beginning. When you look at the pioneering figure, obviously you have the Lumiere brothers in
Sure.
Paris, but right there with them is Georges Méliès.
Yes.
And he had actually bought the theater on Boulevard des Italiens that had belonged to Robert Houdin, who was the person, Jean-Eugène Robert Houdin was the person Houdini took his name from.
Oh, yes.
Yes.
So he actually
Yeah.
owned that
Yeah.
theater, and he had the materials, and he had the props and so forth, and he kind of channeled that experience into the movie making. And so really, and he of course pioneered special effects, and he's famous for that flight, voyage to the moon.
Yeah, yeah.
But I hope I'm close enough to the mic.
Yeah, you know you're
Yeah.
good.
But he pioneered that, or directed that voyage to the moon. But he also did these films where he would inflate. He'd take his head off and inflate it, or he
Yeah.
would have different heads singing. But he would also do vanish. He would vanish people, and he was using special effects. So these were not necessarily the kinds of things that are used in a stage illusion, not in a stage illusion, but he was finding a way to use this new medium, and really technology and magic, even though sometimes magic is seen as being as opposed to science, really they're very closely related.
I love the way you and Raymond have admitted this is illusion.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There are a lot of people who think you expect, when they come to see your shows,
Yes.
they expect it to be some kind of a transcendent experience, and they're convinced of this, and they're feeling very bad when they're saying, how do they do that? And I'm so happy to hear you say that this is illusion, and movies are illusion. First of all, we subconsciously can't even control those 24 frames coming through. They just suddenly become a flowing narrative
Well,
visually.
they're still, right? They're still framed.
Yes, that's right.
And I think the idea that, that was part of the technology, is to figure out how to allow, not only for the exposure, but allow for there to be a kind of pacing for those
Yes.
to move. I think is also an interesting thing in terms of that perception,
Yes.
that illusion of movement.
Yeah.
Can I show you something?
Sure.
Since we're together, will you hold your hands up like this, both hands, and drop one of your hands?
All right.
Did you notice that you dropped the hand on the same side that I did?
I did notice that.
Now, I'll tell you something very fascinating. In my performance, I've only had one person that dropped the other hand.
Oh my.
So
Excellent.
that is an example of the control of a human mind on a
I
subliminal
love that.
basis.
I love that. Bueno, what
Yes.
about you?
Yes, since you brought up about Méliès, that what he did, of course, this is early filmmaking, and basically would stop the camera to move an object around and start it up again. We think that's so simple, and it is, but for the viewing audience at the turn of the 20th century, it was a big thing, which particularly, 1896, he did one called The Vanishing Lady, where he had a woman, put a sheet over her, stopped the camera, removed the sheet, started the camera again, removed the sheet like she disappeared, then goes over, and she had moved into a cabinet.
As many times as I've been up to your show, Mysterio, when you vanish a lady, when you have that cabinet and whatever you do, I still quite can't figure it out. I think I'm getting close.
Yeah.
I think it may be the placement of the door that may be doing it, but I can't, even Keith and Lula, who are real sharp at this, can't quite figure out actually most of your tricks. The
Yes.
two of you, they can't, and that's the joy of it. But it is illusion the way movies are, And Wayne and I have certainly seen enough, and you guys have seen enough
Yeah.
in the movies to appreciate the connection between magic and that. I would end by saying, as T.S. Eliot once said, as if a magic lantern threw the nerves and patterns on a screen. There we go, there. And and Othello, I think, says, and there's magic in the web of it. That was in Desdemona's handkerchief. So we've got all kinds of good literary stuff going on, but you want to know something? As I knew it, we would just not have enough time. And we're going to have to direct our audience to our podcast, which in this case, since we're at Cinema Classics, we're at Double Take. They have to go to WCBE.org and the podcast experience and pick that up if they want to hear more of our blather. Can you believe anybody would want to hear more? I can. I'm John DeSando.
Classics, let's go to the movies and share some popcorn, soda pop with our friends. Turn off our cell phones and get away. Night or day, it's John DeSando on the radio. We'll watch the credits from up high.